Great, thank you all. Again, my name is Rochelle, and the What Works Cities team and I are absolutely delighted to be here today. For anyone not familiar with What Works Cities is the international standard of excellence on what it means to be good, well-managed local government. We were started by Bloomberg Philanthropies, and we're led by Results for America. We are a network of over 200 cities in North, Central, and South America that get together to work on best practices. We do hands-on capacity building workshops together, and we elevate what it means to be a good local government that is in service of its residents and strengthening resident-level outcomes. To date, we have over 100 cities that are certified with us, and these cities are like the best in class on what it means to be a good, well-managed local government. Today, we are excited to continue the conversation we started here last year, where we talked a little bit about how cities were thinking about AI and how cities were starting to pilot using it. And with today's conversation, we want to advance. We want to touch on how cities are not only using and preparing data and technology for emerging needs, but also how cities are actually practically using AI, but also using AI for one of the most pressing challenges of the day, which is climate change. During the discussion, if you are a city leader, please take note of the solutions you hear, the approaches, the frameworks that are shared, and see if there's something that you can replicate in your city. If you're an organization or even a vendor that wants to work with cities or are currently working with cities, take note of the needs that these cities are highlighting that they need support with, and see if there's an offering that you can provide. And now I'm excited to welcome our esteemed panel. And to kick things off, I'm going to ask everyone to join me. So coming up first is Mayor Shannon Martin of Silver Certified Port St. Lucie, Florida. We have Mayor André Sayegh of Silver Certified Patterson, New Jersey. I see someone has a team here. We have Kyle Patterson, the Director of Organizational Effectiveness of Silver Certified Boise, Idaho. And we have Greg Useem, Chief Performance Officer of Silver Certified Alexandria, Virginia. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And so to kick things off, I'm going to ask each panelist to briefly introduce yourselves and then answer this first question. What role has data and technology, such as AI, played in how your city prepares for, as well as responds to, emerging needs? And Mayor Martin, I'll start with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Shannon Martin, Mayor of the City of Port St. Lucie. We are located on the east coast of Florida. We are about 45 minutes north of West Palm Beach and 2 hours south of Orlando. So we're working with AI, and obviously our climate is really important. Obviously being in Florida, it's extremely, extremely hot. And so one of the things that we are most proud of is that we are a Tree City USA and have been for 2 decades, and making sure we're providing as much shade as possible, looking at our tree canopy, and addressing the needs of our residents more especially, because they also require a lot of shade and ask for it, especially in our parks and other areas. So we're looking at complete streets and how can we utilize AI in order to map out certain areas where we know that more tree canopies are needed, and making sure we're addressing those issues specifically.
Great. Mayor Sayegh?
Good morning. I'm André Sayegh. I'm the proud mayor of the historic and resilient city of Patterson. As you can see, I have a fan club here because they're proud Pattersonians as well. We were founded by Alexander Hamilton, and we're the first planned industrial city in the United States, but we also make an argument that we're the first sustainable city in the United States because we have the second largest waterfall east of the Mississippi, second only to Niagara Falls, and we harnessed the water from the falls to create an industrial city and fuel the factories that emerged as a result as well. I also want to thank Bloomberg Philanthropies because 2 years ago, I participated in COP28 in Dubai. So we learned many lessons on how we can engage our youth. In fact, we won a Youth Climate Action Fund grant, and we're getting high schoolers involved in the process as well. And 2 reasons why I wanted to participate today. One, I'm a long-suffering, unabashed Mets fan, And when I heard that the mayor of Port St. Lucie, where they play spring training games, was going to be here, I wanted to make sure that I became friends with her. Second, rumor has it, based on our participation, What Works Cities was going to have the city of Patterson certified as gold status. Is that correct?
I might need to validate that, but I'm glad we can provide some inspiration.
Okay, we'll check that out later. But nevertheless, we have severe heat waves and hurricanes. As a matter of fact, in 2011, Hurricane Irene displaced 6,000 residents, and President Obama came and met with most of those individuals, or tried to reach out to as many residents as he could. 10 years later, Hurricane Ida displaced a significant number of residents as well. We have an issue with our river, so we are going to be implementing real-time river monitoring, placing high-tech sensors so we can predict what can happen in the event that there's a storm. We also have a green team. We participate in what's called Sustainable Jersey, and just like What Works Cities, we're silver certified. We're always going for the gold as a city. And we have a green team that helps us clear out catch basins, because that can be an issue as well. So we're taking some significant steps, but one thing I want everybody to take away from this, the pandemic taught us that we always have to be on high alert, and that we always have to be prepared. And preparedness means you have to have partners. So we're proud to have partners like MIT and Rutgers, and the fact that we can apply for grants to help those residents that have been displaced to explore a buyout program. So in the future, we can help those individuals find somewhere safe to live, and then use that flood-prone area for potentially water storage. So quite frankly, whenever I issue a robocall or an alert on social media, I always punctuate it by saying Patterson is prepared.
Wonderful. Greg.
Hi, thank you for the invitation. I'm Greg Useem. I'm from the city of Alexandria, Virginia. I'm with the Office of Performance Analytics, and I'm a Nationals fan. Does that matter? No. Okay.
That means you're a rival.
And Alexandria is a community next to Washington, D.C. We're a fairly small jurisdiction. We're about 15 and a half square miles, about 160,000 residents. And we're really early on in our AI journey. We're really focusing in right now on how can we use AI to become a more efficient and effective city. I'm very excited to be on this panel to hear more as well, but also to share how we're really focusing in on the quality and the status of our data to leverage AI effectively to make better decisions.
Great. Kyle.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kyle Patterson. I'm the Director of Organizational Effectiveness for the city of Boise. I'm going to try and bring the same energy that André has, but I don't know if I have it in me.
4 cups of coffee.
Yeah. One of the big climate risks facing the city of Boise right now is wildfire, as it is in most of the West. And we're really working to experiment with tools, especially using AI to help with that. And I know our fire department's very excited about a growing number of tools that help predict wildfire, that help you prevent wildfire, and also help you sort of respond effectively to wildfire. So can help you make sure you're deploying the right resources at the right time in the right place to be effective. But one of the things that conversation has really brought up is, as we all know, good AI tools require a lot of good data, right? And so it's really incumbent upon us as cities to making sure we're doing the hard, unglamorous work of data governance, of data management, of extracting that data from our source systems so that we can have good data, good AI. And as somebody who's worked in the civic data space for a long time, it's sort of an I told you so moment, right? I've been telling you this the whole time, we gotta do this. And now we're sort of finally getting traction to do that, which I think is one of the real benefits of the growth of AI we've seen.
Thank you, Kyle. What you all can see is everyone touched on not only just like they're thinking around AI, but also what we're all dealing with now, what feels like these once-in-a-lifetime weather-related events are now the new normal. Yeah. And we know that local government is on the forefront of that and need to be proactive as well as respond in the moment of crisis. And so, Mayor Martin, I'm curious about, heat is a hot topic, right? Our planet is getting warmer and warmer by the minute. How are you using data and technology for your tree canopies to ensure that all neighborhoods are sort of benefiting from the canopies that are being set up?
Yeah, so we're using it for mapping certain areas. We are in the realm of high-performing public spaces. making sure that our residents have a park or some type of public space within 10 minutes of every resident in the city. We're a very large city, over 121 square miles. We're the third largest in land mass in the state of Florida and the sixth largest in population. So we're really making sure that we're paying attention to where we can have those areas and mapping them out appropriately, distance-wise, to put in the necessary shade and the necessary canopies in order to help protect our residents from the heat when they want to engage in those public spaces.
And I'm curious, how are you engaging residents as well?
We use a variety of methods. We have lots of town hall meetings. We have the National Community Survey that we do through Polco. We have a citizen summit that we do every single year where we invite all of our residents into our community center, one of our community centers in the city, show them everything that we're working on, ask them where they want us to spend their dollars, ask them about engagement, and really get as much data as we possibly can, asking them about how they feel about our projects, because it's all about that data that drives us for our strategic planning efforts, which is so important. Everything we do is through a strategic plan. It aligns our mission and our vision and our goals in the city, and we follow that very closely based on what our residents say that they want to see and what they need in our community.
I think what's important is you're using mapping technology, but you're also using community.
Yes.
And raising up community voices and including that as part of the process.
Absolutely, it's really important.
Great. And Mayor Sayegh, I know that also you shouted out, you all received a $9 million grant to deal with some extreme weather mitigation, particularly around your stormwater, from my understanding. Can you also talk about how you're using data and community outreach to allocate that funding, and then any ways that you're using AI?
So earlier I alluded to the fact that we have partners as far as preparedness is concerned, and Rutgers is one of them. So we're using that $2.5 million grant that we were generously given, or I should say applied for, and we are going to invest in green infrastructure installation. So we would install rain gardens, we would install porous pavement and other nature-based solutions to reduce rainwater runoff in the city. Because quite frankly, there are certain sections that are really prone to flooding. I'll give you one example. There's a road, it's known as River Street. And when it rains, it's more river than street. So those are the types of areas that we want to invest in. What's also important is that we've earmarked American Rescue Plan money to address places like River Street, because it's not just about resurfacing your road, it's about repairing and relining your sewer system as well.
Are you using any technology or AI to assist you with those efforts?
We're actually making progress in the area, but we're not where we want to be. We do emphasize the importance of AI, and Patterson is trying to achieve that status, but I think that probably would get us gold status with What Works Cities as well, right? I'm going to keep harping on that.
It doesn't quite work like
Okay.
that, but
I tried.
I appreciate you trying.
I tried. Thank you.
Greg, I think I'm going to pivot to you a little bit. I think the two mayors highlighted how they're thinking about AI, using technology, but we know that it's not easy, right? To upskill city staff, to think about what are the regulations, particularly around AI, how to use it. And so I'm just curious, how are you thinking about building strong data capabilities in Alexandria, and what is your vision for AI in the city?
Yeah, so this is what we've been spending quite a bit of time on recently, and I'm sure like everybody else out here, we all have perfect data, right? It's in perfect shape. You can look at it and right away tell everything you want to. Of course, we have a lot of challenges with our data, and when I mean data, I don't just mean data sets coming out of an ERP or some other sort of solution. I'm talking about documents, I'm talking about pictures, I'm talking about pretty much any digital asset, because AI can use all of that important information to help you make, some sort of decision, and can collate it and provide insight. And so, the thing about AI that's really interesting is that it really can make a confident prediction or a confident answer back to you based on that information. But if you have a policy that is 20 years old, 30 years old, or in Alexandria is also a very old city, 100 years old, I mean, goodness gracious, it's going to come back and tell your employees something that is outdated, incorrect, or otherwise. And if they are not aware of that challenge and they're just taking the AI's answer, you've got a really big challenge. And that crosses lots of things, right? data sets, files, et cetera. And so I think in Alexandria, what we're really starting to think about is how do we get sort of a grip and a grasp over what's happening. Again, it does feel like we're finally getting some traction on, hey, we need to get an inventory. We need to understand where everything is. We need to and so what we're really focused on is governance. We're talking about centralization of resources. We're talking about making sure that we have the most up-to-date version. We're also making sure that we've got our data cleaner. And I say cleaner too, instead of perfect, because data will never be perfect. We've got data, we've got a ton of data in our organization. We're a full service city. We've got things from the police department to health and human services and more. And so the question is, how do we get data in good enough shape so that we're able to then go and leverage it in AI? And you know, that's one part of the solution. The other part is we're just starting to test and try, because honestly, we can sit in an office, work through this data, but we really have to test and try to see how does the AI look at that data, how is it bringing back solutions, and then either we need to rethink the AI, how it's being applied, or we need to really be thinking about our data and cleaning it. And by having that sort of feedback loop, that can feel more tangible to the organization, and it can feel like, oh, now I understand how AI is working, and therefore I need to make changes in what we're doing. But this is all about we're resource constrained, and we need to really figure out how we can leverage this technology to help us over that hump.
Greg, I love that you said the data needs to be clean, not perfect, because I think that's one of the tensions we're feeling right now is sometimes in the messaging, it's like you can only use AI if the data is perfect. No, it just needs to be clean so that we're getting accurate results. So Kyle, you've been a champion of this work, and I heard you say this is your I told you so moment. I feel you on that. And you've been doing this work both in Boise, but also prior when you went to San Francisco. And so we're curious to hear a little bit more about your AI ambassador program that you're running and how you're integrating city governments, city departments to actually use AI.
Yeah, thanks, Rochelle. You know, we in Boise saw generative AI tools as a tremendous opportunity, right, to help us do our work better and faster so we can deliver more community impact to our residents. But also we saw a new set of tools. We didn't know how to use it. Nobody knew how to use it. We're all figuring out how to use it together, and a set of tools that were far from perfect, right? There's lots of risks in using them, bias, hallucination. We're all aware of them now, right? And so we made a decision that strategically as a city, we really wanted to encourage our staff to use these tools safely and responsibly. And so we launched a little over a year ago a big AI rollout program, which included creating an AI policy, a heavy dose of education for staff around the risks, but also how to use the tools effectively. Some of that training was required, some of it was optional. We created a AI community of practice to provide a forum for staff to talk about AI and share learnings. But the one element of that rollout that I think was the most impactful was that AI ambassador program. And so it was a competitive program. We invited staff who were excited about AI to apply to be part of the program, selected about 1 to 2 folks per department, and they were really tasked with, again, encouraging the responsible use of AI in their department. They got some training and toolkits and coaching from me, but we really empowered them to do their work, and I think it was really impactful for a couple of reasons. One is that when we're talking about change and changing the way folks work and do their work, that peer-to-peer interaction is really critical in that, right? I can send out a citywide email saying, Gen AI is great, here's some use cases, here's some things to be careful of, and that's helpful. It's not useless, but it's not gonna result in large-scale change. But if I'm a librarian, right, and my trusted colleague librarian says, oh, I've been using Gen AI, here's these 3 ways I've been using it that you can use it, also watch out for this, you have to be careful, that's gonna lead to real change in the way people work, and that's what we saw here. And second, the other reason why I think it was really impactful is that the way folks use Gen AI varies by the work that you do, right? A librarian's gonna use it differently and have a different set of risks than a paralegal or a budget analyst. And so by empowering the AI ambassadors to create a rollout strategy that made sense for the context of their department, it was much, much more powerful. And so those 2 things combined, I think, really led to large-scale change. We saw some success in the rollout. Over the course of like the 9-month body of work that we did, we saw Gen AI use grow like 9x, so a lot more Gen AI use. For folks who had access to a paid ChatGPT license, they self-reported that it saved them about 4 hours a week on average of work, which is huge. That's a big ROI. And I believe 88% of staff self-report that they're aware of the risks of using AI. So we feel like they're using it safely and responsibly. Still a lot of work to be done in that space, but it was a great start.
Now, and that's great, and I think one of the things you did is you built champions, right? And you need champions around data management, but you also need champions on embracing new technology. For our two mayors, what's the first question that comes to your mind when city staff present you with a potential AI solution?
So the first question would be, does it align with our strategic goals and priority, what the usage is going to be? We always want to make sure that we're following our strategic plan and making sure we're aligned on our mission and our vision for us to evaluate, what the usage is going to be and which tool in order to use in order to do that. And also, what's really important too is we have an innovation academy, which is similar, where we have key employees that are learning how to use it, all the different tools that the city is embarking on using or has started to use already, and making sure those key employees are trained on how to use it, because again, that data, what data you use is so important, and moving forward in that direction, and working through that, and then being able to bring those recommendations forward. Having that training and knowledge really helps with those recommendations, because those employees know exactly what we're looking for from the direction that the city council has given in the past through our workshops and through other meetings and things like that.
When I first took office 7 years ago, data in Patterson was like a 4-letter word. It is a 4-letter word, but it wasn't used to benefit the residents of Patterson. So we implemented data, and I want to allude to something I talked about earlier relative to the pandemic, which taught us lifelong lessons, that data can help you save lives and make predictions, which is what AI can do as well. We hired a chief data officer, and every day there was a dashboard, and we talked about infection rates, hospitalization rates, unfortunately death rates as well, and those data points determine decisions that we made. So if we align data and AI, we can continue to improve lives, and in the instance that there is another once-in-a-century crisis that we have, we can save lives as well.
I think both Mayor Martin and Mayor Sayegh touched on two things. It's, does it align with our strategic vision, but also does it meet the needs of our residents, right? And so from the mayor executive perspective, you're thinking high level, how does this technology help us do our jobs well, serve our residents, connect with our priorities? For our two folks here that are the staff members, right? You are the senior leaders of cities, and you're often trying to convince your executives, let's do this. What do you need from executive leaders to move forward with AI solutions? Kyle, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting you brought up COVID, and one of the key learnings for me around COVID was that when there's an emergency, when there's a crisis, we need, as staff, access to really good data, but so do our residents. They're hungry for good data and information from trusted sources. And so how are we sort of preparing ourselves to be able to do that? And I think that applies very much to this topic today, right? When there's an extreme weather event, that's an emergency. Like how are we preparing our data today so that we can provide it to the public in a useful way, in a trusted way? And so I think my big ask for leadership, as always, let's invest in this for the future, right? This is a tool that we need to be able to thrive as a city, to provide our residents what they need, to be responsive to residents. And we all do that if we invest in it and if we treat it as an asset.
Yeah, so what I would add and build upon here, I think also, and it's also been said, is encouraging collaboration, cross-departmental collaboration, and collaboration with your community or your academic partners. I mean, I think there is so much that can be learned and done here with AI that we're only really, at the very tip of the iceberg in terms of what we think where this is going to go. And I think being a leader to encourage us to collaborate with different departments. In Alexandria, that's my office, the Office of Performance Analytics, the IT department. We have a Transportation and Environmental Service department who's extremely interested, a Community and Human Services department. So we're starting to reduce those barriers. And then similar to what others have said, we're going out into the community, and we've already partnered with a terrific partner in Virginia Tech to start testing and trying some of these technologies. And all of that can't be done without the executive or leadership support to encourage that and help create those relationships.
Great. And so we're hearing collaboration is important, partnerships, that buy-in, and you need leaders, executive leaders, to make the investment or to signal to your staff that they can invest in this area. Is there anything else that we're missing that you think that is needed?
Again, communicating with your community. How do we achieve equity as far as across-the-board communication is concerned? Not everyone's on social media. You don't have TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, but you record a robocall and send it out to your residents to keep them informed. Then there's also emails that you can send. Any level of communication that you can provide to your residents will be helpful, especially when there's an extreme weather event or there's a crisis that you have to keep your community informed about.
Great.
I was just going to add, internally, I think this is going to be a major shift for organizations, and I think there is going to be a lot of training, there's going to be a lot of organizational discussion about how to apply AI and how people's jobs are really going to be changing. And again, we also do not know what it's going to look like. So it's a very nebulous situation right now. And so, I think it was Ethan Mollick, you may know him, he talks a lot about this is the worst AI we're going to see right now. And so I think keeping that back in our minds and understanding there's going to be a lot of change coming. And so how can leaders help figure out how this organization is going to how your organization is going to morph and change in the future?
And I just add, you spoke to the importance of communicating to residents, which is super important. But when we're talking about organizational change into this new era of AI, that communication internally is really critical as well, because we don't know the answers. We have to experiment, we have to share learnings, and we have to bring staff along with that. I've found that the best approach to sort of changing an organization is one where there's a high-level vision and executive support. This is where we're going. We want to encourage responsible experimentation with AI, but then you empower the staff who are really closest to the work, who are doing the job, to find ways to do that effectively and empower them and give them agency in that work.
Great.
And I agree with that. And what we do in Port St. Lucie is when we do our strategic planning, we're hands-on with staff in the room, and we all do it together. We engage in human-centered design to make sure that we're getting everybody's ideas, and it's not just my ideas or my council members or our administration's ideas that are important. It's everyone working together and collaborating, because we have one mission and goal, and that's to serve our residents the best way we can, the most transparent way we can, and the most effective and efficient way that we can. And the only way to do that is by working together organizationally with our residents, and then of course with all our community partners as well. And so whatever tools we can continue to use in the future to do that, and relying on our team to bring that forward and share that is really, really important. And it's the way of the future. And again, you're right about which ones to use, and making sure that this is the beginning, but there's a lot more to learn, and just be willing to do that.
Absolutely. And I think you all touched on centering the needs of residents and centering the needs of city staff and making sure we're bringing them along. Because I think a lot of times when we have these conversations, it's senior leaders, it's executives get to sit in these spaces and have these conversations and learn about the technology, but we always don't get the chance to actually talk to the civil servant staff that are there through many transitions and administrations that are really going to be the carriers, right, of this work forward. As we start to wrap up, I would love if you could, sort of wave a magic wand and create the perfect AI solution. What would you want that solution to solve for you, whether it's an operational issue or even a weather-related, climate-related issue?
So one of the things that we dealt with the hurricanes most recently, which was something very different that we usually don't have in Florida, is when we had Hurricane Milton, because there was a hurricane about a week before that. One of the things that we experienced was tornadoes. And we had several tornadoes rip through Florida on the west side and come across our city. And it was really just an anomaly. But now we're starting to question, is this going to be what the future is with regard to the weather? If we have two more hurricanes that are within a week or two of each other, because of all the atmospheric pressure and what's going on there. So how can we use AI for emergency management purposes, for maybe mapping transportation, utilizing streetlight and evacuation routes? So we're going to be heavily looking into that as we move forward in the future.
Great.
I can't resist. I mean, everybody in government's concerned about Doge right now. So AI helping us with staff and not losing the bandwidth that we have already, because quite frankly, Patterson is a cash-strapped city, and we have bare bones as far as who's in my office and working in other offices. So in order to scale up, we'd have to rely heavily on AI for some of these tasks that in the past have been performed by human beings.
I think from climate issues and emergencies that we may face, I think something that we've been thinking a lot about is creating a digital twin of the city and being able to run scenarios, testing out different situations, because I think that'll just help us be better, be ready for the next situation. Hopefully there's not another COVID, but certainly understanding those lessons and then trying to run through scenario planning is something that I would wave my magic wand at.
Love it. Kyle.
And Rochelle, I would love to see AI companies solve their own problems first. As we know, these generative AI companies use a tremendous amount of energy, which results in climate impacts, which then again makes more severe weather events, right? And so as somebody who uses generative AI, I love it as a tool, but I'm really worried about it. And so I'm really excited and hopeful that we'll see more efficient models coming out that use less energy, but also see a lot of these companies invest heavily in clean energy because they're responsible for that too.
Great. And rapid fire, what's one thing you want this audience to take away from this discussion today?
I would say don't be afraid to work collaboratively, build your own innovation academy, and get everybody on board so that everyone's on the same train moving in the right direction to work the most efficiently and effectively as possible.
Great.
I would say messaging. It's really important that you underscore the importance of communication and that you cannot over-communicate, and you need to leverage whatever is available to make sure that you keep your residents informed. In fact, when I record my robocalls, I punctuate it with stay safe, stay strong, and stay informed.
I would say start. Don't worry about failure. Just give it a try. See what works, see what doesn't work, and then create systems and processes to go from there. Just start and give it a go.
Yeah, for any problem any city has in this room, somebody else has faced that challenge before. Probably somebody else in this room has faced that challenge. So pick up the phone, talk to your colleagues, and that's why I'm so thankful for forums like this, and thanks to Results for America for doing this, because I get so much value out of talking to the folks on the stage, folks all around about the problems they're facing and how they're addressing them.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you to our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you to all of you for attending. I know we're probably bumping up against lunchtime. I don't want to stand between you and food. It's clear that the challenges posed by extreme weather demand long-term investments, and those investments need to be made in data, technology, as well as infrastructure. And AI is one of those powerful tools that can be leveraged to help us mitigate against the effects of extreme weather. But it's only as good, we heard, as strong data, not perfect data, but clean data. It's only as good as collaborations, the collaborations that we're doing internally with our city staff, with our leadership, the direction that you're setting as an executive, but also the messaging that we're putting out and how we're engaging our residents, right? And it's also as good as if it's actually meeting real world needs, whether it's the climate related needs or just the organizational efficiency and capacity building needs that cities have. These are the tools we need for the future. And these are the tools that are gonna help us drive change, especially during this time where we're thinking about how we can be efficient with limited dollars. And so as I close, I encourage all of you to take back to your communities, your cities, your organizations, some of the learnings and topics that we covered today. And hopefully there's a way that this can be applied to your work. And also, and last but not least, What Works Cities team is here. We would love to connect with folks to share more about who we are and what we do. We are in the business of building capacity of cities. We are in the business of making sure city leaders are able to meet the needs of their residents, not just when things are good, but in times like this. We are doubling down on our support, and we're here to help you. And even if you're an organization that's trying to think about how to connect with cities, we can tell you what our cities are talking about. We have over 200 cities. And AI is definitely the hot topic, but it's more importantly, it's not just AI, it's how is this gonna be useful in helping me show up well as a leader and meet the needs of my residents. And so thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this great morning session. We look forward to seeing you all after our lunch break. Please make sure to join us for Road to FIFA World Cup 2026.